All right, and welcome to Module 7, the campaign and the tagline, executing strategy across multiple themes and platforms. This is part 1 of 1.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Module 7, the campaign and the tagline. Today we're going to be talking about how you can execute strategy across multiple themes and platforms. Now, in the reading, as Barry puts it, a campaign is a series of ads that make up a concept or an idea. Now, the difficulty with the campaign is that you need to have more than one execution. One-shots are pretty easy, but coming with a big idea that crosses multiple platforms and at least 3 executions is definitely a challenge. Today we're going to differentiate the difference between a campaign and a one-shot and give you some pointers on how you can write better and more effective taglines that you can use in a campaign. So I made this triangle, and here you see at the very center of this building blocks, if you will, my concept of great advertising. The very root of it is storytelling. Remember, with advertising and great advertising, we aren't trying to necessarily do a hard sell. We aren't the salesman. Instead, we're the people that will tell our customers a story about a brand and how that brand will change their life. Now, there are 3 components that you need to complete this triangle in order to have great advertising. That is the storytelling. First off, you need the product and you need the brand. Obviously, when we're in advertising, we want to do something that promotes the brand and gets those consumers that are loyal to that brand. We also want to talk about the product, what is being bought or sold. This way our consumers know exactly what they're supposed to be looking for. And lastly, to tie it all in, you need a campaign. If you have a brand message, you have a product, and there's a story or a big idea that's housed under a campaign, you can now have great advertising, which is storytelling. So what is a campaign? How do we define a campaign? We define a campaign as an advertising execution that completes the concept of the big idea. So in your class projects right now, you should have come up with 4 different strategies and chosen one strategy to focus on. With that, you should be coming up with 100 different ideas. Some of these will be little, some of these will be big. The idea is to come up with that one concept or that one big idea that has quote-unquote legs that can run in a lot of different directions and have a lot of different meanings. And then, when we actually find that concept or that idea that we like, the goal is to make multiple executions that support that big idea, but show the consumer little different snippets or different perspectives of it. So how is a campaign different than what we call in the industry a one-shot? Well, first off, there's more than one execution. A good campaign usually has 3 or more. Think of DirecTV, for instance. They've recently run a campaign starring Rob Lowe, where he says, "Hi, I'm Rob Lowe," and I'm skinny arms Rob Lowe, or insecure cable guy Rob Lowe. And it's the same way of showing you all these advantages of having DirecTV over cable. Also, you need to have a consistent tagline that is used throughout. Recently, you've seen the ads that were shown on video with Snickers. Here you have a lot of concepts that here people are sort of irritated or irritating personalities. They're cranky, they're not who they really are. Then they eat a Snickers and they go back to being normal. They had a tagline for the Snickers campaign, "You're not you when you're hungry." Also, with a campaign, notice it's a consistent art direction, tone, and language. Remember when we were talking about the Snickers campaign? We said it's storytelling. The minute that you see that story or that commercial play out, you know what the story is going to be every single time. Here you have either Betty White or Robin Williams being the crazy coach or the grumpy athlete player. Someone says, "Hey coach, you're not you when you're hungry." Give him a Snickers, and then it turns into back to being normal. Same story every single time. We know what to expect. Now the things, one-shots aren't bad, and as you just start building your portfolio, it's okay to have 1 or 2 one-shots in there. But the thing is, they're easy. A brilliant one-shot is easy to do. Anyone can have one great idea. Oh, there's the falling text. As I said, they're easy to do. But what we want to do, the reason we're going to stick with the campaign, not only to highlight your geniusness and talk about how great you are to developing all these multiple ideas, but we want to use a campaign to reinforce the brand. It's difficult for a one-shot to really tell and send a brand message. One-shots are great for announcing a product or showing the release of a product, but not supporting the brand. One of the things that can make great advertising is when you can start building brand loyalty as part of not only the product, but also the way we communicate and talk about the brand. Let me give you another example. Campaigns can also be executed over time. So if we have a brilliant campaign, we can run it during the spring, summer, and fall, and it won't really matter. However, one-shots, we're going to typically reserve those for, like I said, a product launch, or maybe an event or a season. Like Christmas time, you'll see typically a lot more one-shots for companies rather than orchestrated campaign. Now, as you start building your campaign, it's important that as you're coming up with ideas, you're coming up with your vision, your concepts, and you start thinking of your campaign, that you start thinking in terms of taglines and executables, or how you're going to present that message. Now, there can be some confusion between a slogan and a tagline for a campaign or a brand. Let me illustrate. Nike has a large slogan and a brand identity built around this idea or the slogan of "Just Do It." Anytime you see those three words in that Nike swoosh, you immediately know what they're talking about, what their attitude is, what the brand is meaning, what the persona is. However, sometimes you want to build a campaign that not only supports the brand, but it doesn't come with just the typical slogan. So you can build a campaign that is big or small. Last year, Nike launched a series of ads. In their campaign, rather than use just the "Just Do It," they used a tagline that said "Write Your Future" or "Write the Future." It was a series of ads that told a story about that moment in an athlete's life where they made a play that changed their lives, and Nike was there to help them do it. See, it's not about buying a shoe. It's about telling a story with one big idea, that our products will change your life in that one pivotal moment when you need to step up. So rather than just go on the "Just Do It," which is sort of tried and true, old, but we know it's the slogan, they use a campaign, "Write the Future," to kind of breathe some new energy into the Nike life. Campaigns can also be quite small and simple. Now, this could, by some, be arguably the same ad 3 different times, which we want to avoid. But there is a clever central idea that exists throughout. Do you see what it is? It's for Scrabble. Alright, if you haven't figured it out, I'll go ahead and tell you. You'll notice the whole idea in Scrabble is to obviously score the most with a word, the highest word value. What they've done is they've kind of used a play on words here, where even though in the animal kingdom there can be a smaller animal in size, its point value based on the way it's spelled is much bigger. So in the top left of the top left corner, you see squirrel and fox. In the animal world, a fox is bigger than a squirrel and would normally chase them. However, in Scrabble world, a squirrel is much more attractive in terms of point value than the word fox. Same thing with goldfish and shark, or mouse and cat. And like I said, you want to avoid the same ad 3 times. Now, while this is a very singular concept, the concept is there, smaller animals equals more points, it's developed with 3 distinct executions. They all have the same sort of artwork, the same sort of style, the same sort of tags, the same sort of concept. But these, I would describe them as being more siblings, not triplets. What makes this a good ad is that the concept is applicable to every one of these situations, and they give you a new kind of a puzzle or a new part of that story that's refreshing each time. What would make this the bad ad campaign is if they just took and hung on this idea of the squirrel and the fox. How boring would it be if you saw 3 ads of the squirrel versus the fox, or maybe 3 ads of just the goldfish versus the shark, and they just showed different perspectives and said the same thing. But instead they have a very clever idea that's executed 3 different ways. Almost to the point where as a viewer, you'd want to see if they could come up with the 4th one, or maybe you as a person who sees these type of ad, maybe you'd be challenged to come up with your own 4th reiteration of this ad campaign. As I said before, campaign cohesion can be gray in some areas. There's a lot of different people and a lot of different there's not a right or wrong answer when it comes to how different they should be or how similar they should be. What I'd like to do, though, is as you're developing your campaigns and your tags, think of that each execution should be different from one another to excite people when another edition of that campaign is noticed. I know the word excited is a strong word, but work with me. Using the DirecTV with the Rob Lowe series, for example, anytime you see a new version of, "Hi, I'm Rob Lowe," and his counterpart, whether it's be Strong Guy or Harry Arms or Insecure Rob Lowe or whatever, they're all new characters. Anytime you see a new one, you kind of want to stop and see what the new part of the story is. Speaking of stories, you can also think of a campaign in the way that we kind of talk about movies, or a trilogy. Here, to put things in perspective, when they were creating these movies, The Hangover, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, obviously there was the similar business strategy. The business strategy was to target the same type of audience in each time and tell the same type of story. Each one has the same idea, the same tagline, the same proposition, the same tone, the same action, the same characters. The way they're branded is all the same. However, each version of the movie was slightly different in terms of its execution. Now, I know Part 1 and Part 2 were sort of pretty much the same movie, but you get the idea, especially because Part 3 was a little bit different. To really illustrate this point, take a look at the top. I've highlighted in red. If this were 3 print ads, what I've highlighted in red, "Some guys can't handle Vegas," "The Wolfpack is back," and "The End," function in this case is a headline. The Hangover Part 2, and The Hangover Part 3 would almost function as your tagline. That's the sign-off. You know exactly when you see it what you're getting. And notice how they have the same sort of art direction, the same sort of visuals, and it sort of tells the same story for the audience, and it meets their business strategy. I hope this analogy makes sense to you, and if not, please be sure to comment on our discussion board. Now, if the tagline is so important to a campaign, then what makes a good tagline? Remember, a good tagline is one that supports the brand and the brand's identity, and it cohesively ties together the campaign. It's like putting the title on the story that you're creating. Now, a slogan for a brand can be part of the tag, but it's not essential, and a tagline can also be born to form the slogan. M&M's, "It melts in your mouth, not in your hand," was originally a tagline, and then it became the slogan for the branded of M&M's. All the ones that are the same way, "Just Do It," "A Dime is For," "Every Kiss Begins with K," "Great Food Fast," all of them were taglines that became slogans and vice versa. But at always its essence, the tagline should be the end, the sign-off for the campaign. It's like putting your signature at the end of the letter, that once you read it, you say, "Thank you," sign your name. The tagline should also support the unique selling proposition. Taco Bell has their taglines, "Think outside the bun." Well, they're unique propositions. They're a fast food chain, but they're not like every other fast food chain, Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, that we are thinking outside the bun and offering you products that aren't just traditional hamburgers and chicken fingers. And the tagline should grab the essence of the brand. Think again about the brand personality. If it's not clear in the creative brief, you may have to do some of your own research. Is it a fun brand? Is it a safe brand? Is it a secure brand? Is it a bank or an athletic shoe company? The essence of that brand is going to be a lot different. If that tagline to communicate that, it'll also be important to how the target audience feels about.